So being that it's 6:02, I'll call this meeting to order. Could we open with the pledge, please? I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And just an announcement, pursuant to Governor Baker's March 12, 2020 order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law, General Laws 30A-18, and subsequent orders imposing strict limitations on the number of people that may gather in one place, this meeting will be conducted via remote participation to the greatest extent possible. Specific information and general guidelines for remote participation by members of the public and/or parties with a right and/or requirement to attend this meeting can be found at the town's website. For this meeting, members of the public who wish to watch the meeting may do so by accessing the Chelmsford Telemedia website, www.chelmsfordtv.org. No in-person attendance of members of the public will be permitted, but every effort will be made to ensure that the public can adequately access the proceedings in real time via technological means. In the event that we are unable to do so, despite best efforts, we will post on the town's website an audio or video recording transcript or other comprehensive record of proceedings as soon as possible after the meeting. Just one other note, it's our practice to disable the chat to minimize distractions and undue influence on the discussions, but should the chat be enabled, anything that you type in there, whether to everyone or to one member of the meeting, will become part of the public record. And Ken, do we want to start with the public service announcements?
Sure.
Do we have anyone here to accept the Arbor?
Yes. We have Kate Crawford from the Chelmsford Garden Club is here. Welcome, Kate. So I'll start off by reading the proclamation. The town of Chelmsford issues this proclamation in celebration of Arbor Day, April 30th, 2021. Whereas in 1872, J. Sterling Morton proposed to the Nebraska Board of Agriculture that a special day be set aside for planting of trees, and whereas this holiday, called Arbor Day, was first observed the planting of more than 1 million trees in Nebraska, and whereas Arbor Day is now observed throughout the nation and the world, and whereas trees can reduce the erosion of our precious topsoil by wind and water, cut heating and cooling costs, moderate the temperature, clean the air, produce life-giving oxygen, and provide habitat for wildlife. And whereas trees are a renewable resource, giving us paper, wood for our homes, fuel for our fires, and beautify our community. And whereas trees in our own town increase property values, enhance the economic viability of business areas, and beautify our community. And whereas trees, wherever they are planted, are a source of joy and spiritual renewal. Now, therefore, we, the Select Board, do hereby proclaim April 30th, 2021 as Arbor Day in the town of Chelmsford, and urge all citizens to protect our trees and woodlands and to plant trees to gladden the heart and promote the well-being of this and future generations, to take part in programs to celebrate Arbor Day. Signed this 12th day of April 2021 by the town clerk, Tris Duras, in the Chelmsford Select Board. Kate, we're going to have that signed and ready for you at Town Hall. Not sure if you can hear us.
Can we ask her to unmute? Kate, is there anything that you want to say, or? Oh, there we go. We can hear you now.
Hello?
Hello.
We can hear you, Kate. Congratulations. We're going to have this proclamation signed for you, and we'll have it waiting for you at Town Hall in the town manager's office.
It doesn't sound like she can hear us.
I have unmuted. Have I come up?
Yeah, you're there. We can
Can't
see you and hear you.
anything.
It's probably a problem on her end.
Yep.
Okay.
I can, Colleen.
Say again, Colleen?
Am I supposed to talk now?
Yes.
Oh, I'm sorry. I really am not hearing much at all. On behalf of Chelmsford Garden Club, as Arbor Day Chair, we are arranging an Arbor Day celebration this year. I've gotten a lot of feedback from the town and from many helpers. Elisa Barone and the DPW, as well as Paul Cohen, have all suggested that we plant a tree at the Pocket Park. So we need to have Arbor Day proclaimed, and that will be for April 30th at 3 p.m. And we'll have a socially distanced ceremony on the Pocket Park and plant a matching Kusa dogwood to the one that's already installed there as part of the celebration. I would like to invite anybody who'd like to attend. Of course, we'll all have to be quite separate and wear our masks. And this year we can't, of course, provide any refreshments or any Boy Scouts or anything like that. We do have, I have a flyer that I tried to email to everyone. I don't know if you got it or not. It's in an attachment to the select board and to the town. I think we should be able to go ahead with that. So I'd like to invite you all to that and have that pronounced. So I hope you can hear me, and thank you very much for everybody's help. I'm sorry we couldn't do it last year, but we will be very happy to do it this year. Thank you.
Okay,
Okay, we want to go to the
sure.
birthday?
So we have another proclamation. The town of Chelmsford issues this proclamation in celebration of Earth Day, April 22nd, 2021. Whereas the global community now face extraordinary challenges such as global health issues, food and water shortages, and economic struggles, and whereas all people, regardless of race, gender, income, or geography, have a moral right to a healthy, sustainable environment with economic growth, and whereas it is understood that the citizens of the global community must step forward and take action to create a green economy to combat the aforementioned global challenges, and whereas a green economy can be achieved on the individual level through educational efforts, public policy, and consumer activism campaigns, and whereas it is necessary to broaden and diversify the global movement to achieve maximum success, and whereas Earth Day...
Good evening, board. Should I just speak, or are we going to be called on?
You'll be called on.
Frank, you're going to be called on. I don't
We
think
seem
they
to
can
be
hear us
having
at
some
home.
audio issues.
Sorry, am I coming through?
Frank, I can hear you, but there's another meeting.
Colleen, he's
Okay.
here. He's here for the
on a
Summer
second.
Street grocery
Sure.
store. Colleen, are you there? Did I finish? You don't mind if I finish, do you?
No, I just don't think anybody can hear you.
No. Colleen, are you there?
Ken, do you need me?
Can you hear me right now?
I can hear you right now.
Okay, so it seems like the people at home can't hear us.
No, I'm not, and I was just trying to get a hold of Pete. I'm not seeing the live broadcast.
You should be okay now.
I have it up on my
Frank, can you hear us
iPad.
now?
Ken, I can hear you now, yes.
Okay, so we just got the live feed going. I'm sorry about that, Frank and Kate. We had a delay here with the live feed going live. We just found that out. Kate, we heard you perfectly. We read your proclamation. So that's all set. Frank, if you want to hold on, we're just going to finish a couple more items before we get to your business.
Sure thing, just let me know, thank you.
Sorry, I'm the only one that can
All
hear.
right, let's proceed with the Earth Day proclamation.
Okay. So whereas Earth Day is the beginning of a new year for environmental stewardships, commitments to implement sustainable efforts and commit to an Earth Day resolution, and furthermore, let it be known that the town of Chelmsford hereby encourages its residents, businesses, and institutions to use Earth Day to celebrate the earth and commit to building a sustainable and green economy. Now therefore, let it be
So
resolved
they
that the
didn't have
town...
the live feed. Oops, sorry.
Therefore, let it be resolved that the town of Chelmsford hereby pledges that Earth Day, April 22nd, 2021, to support green economy initiatives in Chelmsford and to encourage others to undertake similar actions. Signed this 12th day of April 2021 by the town clerk, Trish Doris, and the select board.
Thank you, Ken.
And I do have one more announcement regarding Earth Week 2021. There's townwide cleanup that's going to be going on. If anybody has any interest in participating, they can sign up at the DPW at 9 Alpha Road. You pick up yellow trash bags there between Monday, April 12th and Friday, April 16th during the regular business hours, 7:30 to 4 p.m. Plan your cleanup for the week of Monday, April 19th to Sunday, April 25th. Whenever possible, please bring your yellow bags to your home curbside. They will be picked up with the regular trash until Friday, April 30th, or call for other arrangements. Let us know what awesome work we've done by sending us before and after photos, and you can email those to mjoyce@chelmsfordma.gov, or tag yourselves on a hashtag Chelmsford Cleanup 2021 on social media. If you have any questions, you can reach out to Melissa Joyce, who's our sustainability manager, at 978-250-5203, or you can find her email on the town website.
Thank you, Ken. So that brings us to public input. Do we have anybody who would like to speak during public input? If you do, you can raise your hand or undo your video. Activate your video. Brian, Latina? You'll need to unmute yourself. Thank you.
Thank you. I think Madam Chairman, or Madam Chair is the right term. I think I mentioned to you congratulations, and the first select board chair, female select board chair in Chelmsford. That was kind of interesting. The last meeting, April 8th, we had a discussion during open mic that the town meeting of April 26th, Monday, April 26th, was being changed, and there had been a whole bunch of work in the background to make arrangements to change it because in part COVID issues and concerns, in part that it was assigned to the senior center, and some statements were made, and then a letter was followed up by our town moderator to the town meeting members that in fact town meeting originally scheduled for April 26th, I'm reading right from it, 2021 at the senior center is being rescheduled to Thursday, June 17th at 7:30 at the high school gym. Unfortunately, the concern that I had as a town meeting rep was, number one, we weren't informed in advance. Back in February, I guess there was some work being done to determine where the town meeting might be held. Board of Selectmen are supposed to do that. And then a different date other than this date, due to the location that was on the warrant, was up for discussion outside of the town meeting membership. My understanding, based on that letter, is that it has been rescheduled. However, unfortunately, the town moderator hasn't followed, in my opinion, the procedure for an emergency in order to reschedule it. There's a whole set of procedures at a state statute level, 3910A, where someone might do that. As a moderator might do that in a case of an emergency. But it's very clear in terms of that law that that's not the procedure we followed. Instead, we simply informed the reps that the meeting's been rescheduled. Unfortunately, we are a town and a state and a federal government that's made up of laws, not individual decisions. So in my opinion, and I think in the opinion of this board, the original schedule per our charter, per the law, is April 26th. That did not change. The letter may have caused town meeting reps to not come, prepare themselves not to come to the 26th of April town meeting at the senior center. It does state that it's not a safe place. The same day that this discussion was made on April 8th, the article in the local news said that the senior center at Chelmsford was opening up that, in fact, after a year of not being open. So I'm a little confused as both as a town rep and as a member of our community as to what law we're using to change this meeting until June sometime. So as a town rep for a lot of years, and reading the charter and the state statute, I would say that this letter to our town meeting reps is not accurate in the sense that it can't be changed by telling us that it's been changed. It can only be changed by a particular set of procedures, or in terms of location, the Board of Selectmen were to change it. At this late date, I doubt if that could happen, but the ideal place is not the senior center to hold that meeting. It would be at the high school gym, and there's another letter that came to this board, saying how long it will take to set up that location, the gym, and how long it might take to take the kids out of the gym for their normal athletic practice and that sort of thing. So perhaps that's not an option. However, in the April 8th meeting, I think Pete Padula had called the athletic director, and in fact, the gym would be open and available to us if we decided to use it on the 26th. So I would like
Brian,
to.
we're down to the last 30 seconds or so of your 3 minutes.
Yep. I would like to suggest to all of our town meeting reps to follow the normal charter, to attend on April 26th. And if there is not a quorum due to the letter that was sent, that we should, in fact, decide as whatever group shows up there, what day town meeting should be moved to and in what location. That's a town meeting decision, not a moderator decision at this point, based on the procedures followed. I thank you, board. I really appreciate the volunteer work that you do. And I know there's a lot to it. You don't often get thanked, but I think after the last election, here's an opportunity to thank you once again for your volunteer work. Thank you.
Thank you, Brian. Oh, excuse me, Brian, could you just come back and state your name and address for the record? We didn't do that, please.
Yes, sorry. Brian Latina, 15 Jesty Road, and I'm a precinct 4 town meeting rep and newly elected last Tuesday.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to speak during public input? If so, you can activate your video or use the raise your hand function. Okay, seeing none, Ken, would you like to proceed to committee vacancies?
Yes, so tonight we have Bicycle and Pedestrian Advisory Committee has one unexpired 3-year term and one 3-year term. Board of Appeals has one 3-year term. The CCA Advisory Committee has has 2 1-year terms. Center Village Master Plan Implementation Committee has 2 1-year terms. Commissions on Disabilities has 1 3-year term. Community Action Program Committee has 1 1-year term. Council on Aging has 1 unexpired 3-year term, 1 unexpired one ending in 2021 and one ending in 2023. They have 5 associate member positions, unexpired 3-year terms ending in 2021, 22, and 23. Cultural Council has 1 unexpired 3-year term. Energy Conservation Committee has 1 unexpired 3-year term and 1 3-year term. Holiday Decorating Committee has 1 1-year term. Parade Committee has all applicants are welcome. Those are 1-year terms. Permanent Building Committee has 1 3-year term. Personnel Board has 1 2-year term. Public Celebration Committee has 5 1-year terms. Recycling Committee has 1 1-year term. Roberts Field Advisory Committee has a 1 1-year term. Tree Committee has 1 unexpired 3-year term ending on June 30th, 2021, and 1 unexpired 3-year term ending on June 30th, 2022. If you're interested in serving on any of these town boards or committees, feel free to complete an application online at the Town of Chelmsford website, or you can reach out to the town manager's office, either via email found on the town website or calling 978-250-5202.
Thank you, Ken. So next we move to the public hearing for the National Grid and Verizon poll petition at Gorham Street and Columbus Avenue. Do we have someone here from National Grid?
Paulo's there.
Hello, this is Paulo Salter from National Grid. Good evening, Board. Just to continue on from the hearing from last 2 weeks ago, we have an existing wire that runs across a private property, and this customer had asked us to relocate those lines. So that's why we need to install 3 new poles to adjust this line from the private property to public right of way. And the last week, 2 weeks ago, there was a resident from nearby that was worried about the change of the relocation of the poles from across the street. And our engineer, Sam, met with this customer in the field to show him the reason for the change, which was due to an existing gas line that's on Gorham Street. And the other issue was that we believe that there was like a 300-foot distance requirement to notify all abutters from any public right-of-way pole relocation. But per what's her name here, Christina Bruce, the support services coordinator, she mentioned that that wasn't the requirement, wasn't a distance requirement, but it was a just an abutter to the scope of the works requirement. So the people that were notified at the different lots was the correct information that we had. So does anybody have any questions about why we need to relocate this pole?
Is there an update? At the last meeting, you said that there was going to be a meeting with you and the abutter?
No, yes, there was a meeting. I wasn't present. The engineer that designed this, Sam, he was present. And the abutter's concern was that, he was worried that the relocation across the street from the original proposal we had last year that passed, he wanted to know where that gas line was and why we couldn't put it on the other side as originally proposed. So Sam met with the abutter and showed him the gas line and why we couldn't put it there, and he was okay with that. So that was resolved last week.
Any other questions from the board?
Is that a butter on here?
No.
I don't see the abutter.
Okay.
Do we have any proof that the guy approved it, or just in case?
Well, he should be here if he didn't.
Yes.
He knew we
Paul, did you
continued
have-
today.
As far as I understand, everything, again, the information we received is everything's okay, just like Paul was presenting this evening. I have not heard anything to the contrary.
Okay. The public hearing is still open. Is there anyone from the public who wants to speak on this?
I had questions, but they answered them all, so.
Okay. I think we need a motion to close the hearing.
So I'll make a motion to close the public hearing.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. We don't have to roll call, do we?
No, you're in person.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Abstain? Passes 5-0.
All right, and so then we have a petition to approve, or I'll make a motion to approve the poll petition for the joint identical poll locations on Gorham and Columbus Ave as presented.
I'll second.
So we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Okay, seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstentions? Passes 5-0. You're all set, Paulo. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Madam Chair. Have a great night. Thank you.
So that brings us to licenses. The common vigilar license for Summer Street Grocers.
So I've asked Frank to unmute. And Frank,
Good evening, board. Can you hear me okay?
we can.
Could you please state your name and address for the record?
Sure, my name is Frank Francione. I'm at 23 Parker Road in Chelmsford.
Do you want to, can you just give us the snapshot of what you want to do here, Frank?
Sure thing. First off, thank you for your attention tonight. My plan with, along with my wife and I, is to open a small independent grocer on Summer Street in Chelmsford. And yeah, I've been working in the industry for over 20 years now. Lived in Chelmsford my whole life, and trained up in Hyde Park, New York, and just really excited to bring the market in my cooking to my hometown. The concept is locally sourced produce, artisan dry goods, a lot of prepared foods, some hot food, a lot of grab and go, limited seating, probably 2 to 8 seats depending on the time of year. A question I had was the process in getting approval for some outdoor seating on Summer Street. Overall, I've been working on the project since about last July, and we're ready to start construction hopefully around the beginning of June. So I open up to you if you have any questions or concerns about the project or what we're planning on doing. I'm happy to answer them.
Generally, for a CVL, we get a layout of how the seating is going to be before we grant the CVL. Because you don't need to come to us to open a grocery store. You just need to come to us for your CVL.
Yeah, that application was submitted to Christina Bruce,
Mhm.
and along with a floor plan.
Yeah, we have something. It's hard to see.
Yeah.
It's hard to actually see the seating.
The two seating, the seating shown in that plan is 2 small tables in the center of the store. I'm happy to provide the board a larger outline. When I handed that in, I was told it was permissible.
Yeah, can we,
Which one?
Right here, I believe
those are the two?
Right here?
That's for like 4 seats?
Yeah, he shows two seating areas, yeah.
Okay, but then he also mentioned that he needed the process for applying for outdoor seating, too. You said you want to...
Yeah, seasonal outdoors.
Yeah, seasonal outdoors, which is more of a question, how do I go about that process? And is that something we take up here with the board, or is there another process for that? But the seating would vary from about 4 to 8 seats depending on the season.
Question is, where we put those outdoor seating, the way that plaza is constructed, it wouldn't ever be immediate entry to that. So do you have any proposed location for that outdoor seating? I think that's the
Yeah, two tables in front of the 2 windows on the sidewalk. So there's 2 doorways, and they would be to the right of each doorway.
That would allow accessibility around those seats and tables on the walkway?
I believe so. I don't know the exact code on that, but I know that the sidewalk is about 5 to 6 feet wide there.
Wouldn't you still need the fire department and Board of Health to review that plan
Yeah.
when it comes up? So tonight, we'd only be approving the plan that's in front of us.
Back for outdoor seating. Exactly. You can come back for outdoor seating at a later date.
Did you hear that, Frank?
It broke up a little bit. I heard that.
Tonight, we'd be approving, we'd be voting on the plan that's in front of us, the application that's in front of us with the indoor seating.
Sure.
If you want to do outdoor seating, that needs to go back through the process, and that would be approved at a later date, Paul?
Yes. Yeah, we
By
can
the
bring it
board?
back.
Okay.
Is an amendment to this, or?
Yeah, well, you could even come back next meeting, because it
Okay.
doesn't require a public hearing. You just,
Okay.
if you could come back with the plan either later this week, we can get the inspectors out there just to verify that there's no issues with the location of the outdoor seating, which would be all fine.
Okay.
I know Gary Ryan's on this call, and we can have the others do it, the building commissioner and so forth.
Just
Yeah,
so,
we're,
go
we're
ahead.
about to apply for permits, and I'm trying to set up a meeting with Mark at the health department to go over the whole plan. So once, I'll get their approval and come back and revisit the topic of the outdoor seating.
Sure. I'm sure we can get it done before he opens.
Sure.
Yeah.
Is that agreeable?
Yeah, yeah, I just had some questions too about, what you would anticipate serving that would be eaten there. I mean, it says, so you'd have prepared meals that people would eat there? Is that basically how that would work?
Yeah, there'll be prepared meals as both as from a grab and go perspective, a pre-made sandwich or a take-home dinner, and also some hot food, seasonal bowls, roast chicken, things like that. It would all be packaged to go. There wouldn't be no plates or sitting, but I wanted to provide some seats for people to take that product and have a place to eat other than taking it home or sitting in their car. But the general concept is to go food.
Okay, thanks.
Mark, do you have any other questions?
Don't.
George? And you're abstaining?
Okay, I'll make a motion that we approve the common victular license for Summer Street Grocers at 7 Summer Street for inside seating capacity of 4 and hours of operation as presented.
I'll second that.
Okay. We have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Abstentions? 401. Good luck.
Thank you very much.
Yep.
So, and just a note to everybody, it seems like I'm watching Frank, your microphone, Paul, Mark, and Pat, he's really leaning in to hear you. So just if you could bring it closer. I think that's why Pete swapped out the
Okay,
microphone.
all right, okay. Try to be more conscious.
You're all set, Frank, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay, Paul, that brings us to reports and presentations.
Yeah, the first one this evening is Finance Director John Souza, who's here this evening in person because he needed to have your signatures on actual bond documents. So John's going to report on the Standard & Poor's credit rating report, the bond sale last Tuesday, as well as another miscellaneous matter regarding a auction of a tax foreclosure parcel on Barrica Road. I'll turn it over to John.
Thank you, Paul. Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the board. The first item, just to discuss with you, is the Standard & Poor's credit rating report. And I know you have a copy in your informational packets. As you know, in prior years, whenever we go to the bond market, we're required to seek a bond rating from one of the major credit rating agencies. So the town manager and I participated in a conference call back on March 23rd, and 2 analysts analyzed the town's finances in detail. And about a week later, they issued a report dated March 30th. And we were pleased to see that Standard & Poor's affirmed the town's bond rating at AA+ with a stable outlook. As you read through the report, some of the areas that they highlighted that were very strong were the management of the town. They highlighted a number of financial management practices that they were pleased with. They noted that Chelmsford's located in a geographical area with a very strong economy, that we have very strong liquidity. They rated our budgetary performance strong, and they also said we had a strong debt profile, meaning that the town wasn't overextended in our borrowings at any time. In fact, they noted that 89% of our outstanding bonds will be retired in 10 years. And the one thing they noted is they've said in many prior reports is that they would like to see us continue to make progress on funding our OPEB liability in the years ahead. One of the things they like to see is, a sustained commitment from year to year. So that covers the Standard & Poor's credit rating report. And then I'm pleased to report that last Tuesday we had a successful bond auction. We received bids from 9 firms on $14.2 million worth of municipal bonds. And the low bidder was B of A Securities, Inc., which is an affiliate of the Bank of America. And they bid a total interest cost of just over 1.152%. And the bond proceeds are actually going to be used to finance 3 projects that total around $7.57 million. And those projects are the North Fire Station renovation, the purchase of the Warren Pole property, and also to finance our FY21 capital budget. The remaining $6.6 million was used to do a refunding or a refinancing of outstanding bonds that the town issued back in 2012 and 2013. The refunding transaction is actually going to save the town just over $393,000 on future interest costs over the remaining 9-year life of the bonds. So basically, we're calling in those 2012 and 2013 bonds, and we're going to reissue bonds at a much lower interest rate. And Bond Counsel has prepared a detailed motion for the bond sale approval, and respectfully, I ask the board to vote the motion as prepared to approve the sale of our bonds to the low bidder, B of A Securities, Inc.
Okay. So the motion is a 2-page motion, so to shorten this up a little bit, I'm just going to make a motion to approve the sale of the general obligation municipal purpose loan of 2021 bonds of the town dated April 22nd, 2021, as presented by John Souza.
Second. Need a second.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion or questions for John?
I think we got,
You need another signature?
Yeah, we'll just grab it before John.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Seeing none, we'll take, do you need a roll call vote on this, or
I don't believe so,
just a
just
vote.
Okay.
the majority vote will.
all those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
It's 5-0.
right.
Good.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Good job, John.
Thank you, everyone. And then the last item I wanted to provide the board with an update on is, we have a, it's an older tax possession property, which is basically, it's a piece of land that was foreclosed by the town for unpaid taxes. It was actually foreclosed back in the 1980s. And the way this came about, an abutter to the land actually contacted a select board member. The abutter actually, just to find out information, the abutter then contacted me to find out how the process worked. So I explained everything to them and how the process would work. So whenever we have a piece of land like this that's town-owned, that was acquired through a foreclosure, we have to do a public auction. Even though it may be a smaller lot, it may be unbuildable, or whatever the circumstances are. So this auction, I just wanted to explain to everyone, we've posted it on the town website. My office sent out notifications to all of the abutters based off an assessor's list last week. I believe it was around April 6th. We then, even though we're not required to, but we like to do this just to make sure that everyone's notified, all of the direct abutters to the property received a notice by certified mail, return receipt requested, just so the folks that are most impacted by this or interested in this property will, we will have proof that they were notified. So this auction will be slightly different than the past And by that I mean, normally what we do is we hold an auction like this in one of the meeting rooms in the town office building. I contacted our public health director, and even though I don't expect this parcel to attract more than, I would say, absolute maximum, maybe 10, 12 people. The feeling was that it was better to be err on the side of caution, and the auction will be held outside for social distancing and things of that nature. So this auction will be held on Wednesday, April 28th at 10 a.m. behind the town office building, right near the gym. There's a stairway there and a little paved area. It will be held there. If anyone's planning to come, I would recommend that they park in the rear parking lot. It'll make it easier for them. And we'll hold the auction outside. Anyone that wishes to bid will have to check in. We'll provide them with a bidding number. And there's other things they can find out on the website. They're required to bring a $5,000 deposit and a money order, a certified check. Should it be rainy or inclement weather where we just can't hold it outside safely that day, I've reserved the gym. The auction will be moved just up the stairs into the town hall gymnasium, and the floor is still marked out so we can hold it safely there. And so that's a contingency plan just in case of rainy weather. And we'll go from there. So hopefully, it'll work out for the interested party and anyone else in the neighborhood that may be interested.
And then we'll report back probably your May 3rd meeting of the results of the auction.
Any questions? Who would want a parcel like this?
Direct abutters.
Direct abutters? Okay.
I'll share. The person who contacted me, because I know his parents, and he's kind of taking care of the land. And he's like, what do I do with this? And I said, call John. So
Sometimes people want to enlarge their lot if they have the opportunity or, have a
Okay.
little.
So is there a minimum bid? Minimum bid?
In the past, we've been advised to avoid advertising a minimum bid just so if we have to drop the price down at the auction to get the process started, but the assessed value is about $21,000. My expectation is we'd probably open the bidding somewhere around $20,000, but that's just my estimate, but.
Thank you, John.
Thank you.
Thank you, John, for all the work with that. The second is we have DPW Director Gary Persichetti and Assistant DPW Director Steve Yonley on the call. They're here for 3 items this evening. The first is a report since your last meeting, the last select board meeting 2 weeks ago, on the activities at 54 Richardson Road regarding the immediate response action and the North Fire Station relocation. Following that, we have 2 items pertaining to Ledge Road. One is the proposal or project regarding the intersection of Ledge and Dunstable Road reconstruction, and then finally an update on the Ledge Road bus turnaround. So I think we'll start first with Gary and Steve, and I see Steve's on the screen right now to give an update on where we are up to the moment, I guess, on 54 Richardson Road. Thank you, Steve, for coming out.
Thank you, Paul. Good evening, members. Just an update on the IRA from the last meeting on what has been accomplished in the last couple of weeks. As you probably remember, the dates last week we did it April 6th and 7th was all the groundwater sampling from the well locations that were just installed back in March, as well as the existing wells that we had sampled previously on site. And also with that, at the request of the board, we scanned 2 areas. One area where the temporary fire department trailer will be located, about a 50 by 100 area, and then an area 100 by 100 approximately out in the back where the waste oil drums were uncovered. That was done on April 7th by Hager Richter Geoscience. They did 2 scans. One, as you may remember, Paul McKinley, our LSP, had mentioned. One was the electromagnetic scan to look, basically it's a fancy metal detector, I don't know how else to put it. And then the other was the ground penetrating radar. In the front where the trailer was, there were 3 sort of anomalies that were located during those scans. Actually this morning with Weston Sampson on site, We did some test holes around those two of them, had picked up with the electromagnetic. Basically, it was assumed that it was just metal objects, which was confirmed this morning. One was an old tire, or not tire, rim from a truck, probably 40 years old from the looks of it. The other was like a piece of 3-inch metal pipe, sort of towards the back. And there was one, both of those were down, not even 2 feet underground. There was a large anomaly found with the ground penetrating radar, approximately 4.5 feet below the surface, sort of towards the back of the location. When we did the excavation, we determined that it was basically a footing poured. That location used to house the shed for the cold patch. It was a sort of a telephone pole structure, 3-sided with a roof on it. And it appears that when that was constructed, they poured a concrete footing in the back, ran right under the gas line into the tin shed there. And we confirmed it. There's some pictures, I don't know if you've seen them, showing the footing, as well as we uncovered some remnants of the telephone poles. So we did not have not done any digging out in the back yet. That was a larger area that during the scans, they actually expanded the area a little bit. There are some anomalies back there as well. It appears that they just seem to be large objects, could be just rocks that are buried, concrete, old pieces of curb, something along those lines. But due to the size of that area, we should have the report from Hager Richter within a couple of weeks, and that'll give us a grid that we can search off of, and we'll start doing some exploration back there as well to try to uncover those objects. Just at about 5:45 tonight, we submitted our progress report, status report to DEP based on the IRA that we're working under now. That follows up basically with what I just said, as well as some of the sampling results that have come back in based on some soil samples that were done when the wells were installed, as well as some of the soil samples from the things that were part of the IRA, like finding the floor drain system, the original floor drain system, I should say, the old septic system, and then some of the test pitting that was done out around the oil drums. We don't have all of those results, but the stuff that Weston and Sampson has received back on that are included in that report. I just forwarded over to the town manager, like I say, about 5:45 tonight. I forwarded it over to Bruce as well. It's a fairly large file. It was like 12 meg. It's 408 pages or somewhat, most of which is lab results. There were a couple of slightly elevated hits on a couple of wells for soil, not above reporting, but above the lab standard. So nothing to be alarmed about, but does kind of raise our eyebrows for when we get the groundwater sampling back to see if there's any further issue. One of those wells was over kind of in the corner of the dog park. If you look at the plan, I believe it's monitoring well 104 over by the sewer pump station, sort of that end of the dog park parking lot. And the other two were out towards the back of the site near where the drums were buried. But again, it was just a slightly elevated level over lab standard, but not over the reporting concentration with DEP. So just a little bit of a flag, but nothing really alarming. So that's pretty much an update on where we are with the IRA. I'll leave it to you. Yeah.
You can hear me?
I can.
Yeah.
All right, well, I have no big, it says it stopped, so I can't look. Okay, thank you.
Any questions for Steve? Paula, and you said that we're working on getting a quote to scan the entire area?
Yeah, and Steve can bring you up to date on that right now.
Okay.
Yeah, so just because of the large scale of the site, that's a little more in depth. We're trying to get a few different quotes on that. We were able to secure Hager Richter, one of the better firms in the industry for this type of work, for the one day last week, do those couple of smaller areas. But to do the overall site is a much larger effort. So we're trying to do our due diligence in getting some quotes and scopes of work from multiple companies.
Thank you. You ready to go forward, Paul?
Sure, if you have no questions, and I know Gary Perschetti and Gary Ryan are in there. Gary, do you want to give an update in terms of where you are with the temporary fire station facility in terms of the relocation?
Yeah, I'm sorry I don't have any video. It says that it got stopped by the host, so I can't see me. But anyway, what was done this morning that Steve explained clears us for the area that we were looking to do. So now I will have a conversation tomorrow with Triumph, the modular company, so we can move forward. Sorry. There we go. Thank you. So the issue is we're running a little behind based on stuff that's happened, but we're planning on getting them in the latest by the beginning of next month. We're going to push to make that even quicker if we can. The pods themselves are pretty much all set and just about ready for shipment. So we'll move that along, but they do have better than a week's worth of work to do to prep, maybe a little longer than that. So that'll be part of what they're doing. So worst case, we plan on having them in by the beginning of next month, which means that then we can officially close the station, put the fence up, and the first order of business is the abatement of the existing building.
Okay. Any questions?
All right, so again, we are meeting a week from tomorrow. If there's a further update on all this, we'll bring it to you at that time. And then, as you said, keep the board updated as we go into May and so forth. Okay.
Yep.
Thank you. All right, we're going to move on now to the Ledge Road and Dunstable Road intersection reconstruction. As you know, there's an article on the warrant regarding this proposal because it would involve the taking of easement. So Steve Yonley has done some work and has a plan that shows and can give an estimate on how much land would be taken from that property owner, what the project would cost, what the results of the work would be. And I will note to the board that at this point, we have not reached out to the property owner, so I'm not looking for a vote this evening, but we're just looking for, do we continue along this direction with the additional information that Steve's going to provide this evening? Please, Steve.
Thank you. I know I have a presentation, but we can't see the TV feed, so I'm kind of.
I've got it up, Steve.
We can see it if you want to do it and just walk through it.
Yeah, just tell me when you want to. I'm on page 1.
All right. Okay, we'll see how this goes. Yeah, so page 1 is basically just kind of the header page. I included a sort of an aerial photo, kind of zoomed in a little bit, give everybody sort of a feel for the overall. Oh, there we go. Now I can.
Okay.
I can see it. So basically, it lets everybody see, an overhead view of sort of the geometry of what the intersection looks like. Ledge Road kind of comes up, looks like it's going to go straight, and then hooks into Dunstable Road at a pretty severe angle to the right there. And I guess some of the conversation has been, would it be advantageous to shift the road either straight or almost to force traffic to the left? So it's head for the next slide. What I did was I just took some photos. The photo to the left of the screen is looking to the northwest towards Tingsboro up Dunstable Road. You can see it's got a few slight vertical curves, and then the Stonehill Road intersection is a few hundred yards up on the left. The photo on the right is looking kind of southeast, back towards North Chelmsford, or the Tingsboro line, and then back into North Chelmsford. Fairly good sight distance that way. The road sort of still has a slight decline, but is feasible in that direction. Next slide looks from standing in Dunstable Road, looking down Ledge Road, and then the slide to the right is basically standing around that corner a little bit, looking back towards Dunstable Road, and you see there's a Verizon truck in that picture. That is more or less where the road would be going if you're going to allow the vehicles to be able to make a left turn and head north towards Tingsboro. And again, the next slide is just some slides, some photos of what would be the affected property at 248 Dunstable Road. Just this, especially the photo to the right, I wanted to give everybody a better visual of sort of the elevation difference between Ledge Road, the side yard of the house, and then Dunstable Road, obviously right in front of the house. It's about a roughly 6 foot grade difference that we would have to, sort of start to pick Ledge Road up, be cutting into the side yard of the home, and then trying to rework Dunstable Road a little bit in order to make the curve and the transition be workable, especially for a large vehicle. On the next slide is some sort of rough truck turning templates based on our GIS information, and then I had local engineering company use their truck auto turn templates. This was done with a WB50 trailer unit, which is basically the equivalent to a trailer dump, if you will. The slide on the left, or the graphic on the left, shows the vehicle as it would be heading towards Dunstable Road to turn left off of Ledge onto Dunstable. And the graphic to the right is coming southeast on Dunstable Road, turning right onto Ledge Road. Sort of, again, this is based on GIS information, so it's close, but it's not perfect to get it to work. But it begins to give you a visual if you're going to turn a vehicle like that, and that's, I would say probably half, if not more, of the vehicles coming out of there are trailer dumps. So they have to be able to make this maneuver. So it gives you a little bit of a perspective on what we're starting to look at just to make the truck that turn, never mind the accessory work of grading or retaining walls or whatever I have to do to make the slope on that property, if you remember from the previous photo, how to make that work. The next slide indicates sort of, my first run at a draft easement. It's a little under 7,400 square feet. The property, I believe, is about 34,000 square feet total. It was a small shack that was purchased. The land was purchased a few years ago, and the new home was built, and the current residents bought it a little less than a year ago for just under $700,000. So again, just to give a little perspective on how close, we're going to be kind of pulling the road towards the house in order to make this work. And again, I'm doing this under the guise of still allowing vehicles to go right, but also affording them the opportunity to go left. And then the last page, I believe, is just some copies of some of the, to the left, the graphic is a plan at the Registry of Deeds that shows the layout. It's the clearest plan we have of Ledge Road. Shows that what we own, and that's when the homes were built on that side a few years ago, and the graphic to the right side, I'm sorry, some of them came in sideways. That's the foundation certification from about a year and a half ago for 248 Dunstable, and I use that to try to, approximate where the house is on the lot without doing any real survey work. So again, my initial estimates, construction-wise, we were, around 400,000. There's be a little bit of wetland permitting. There's 3 affected telephone poles that if we do move forward, we'll have to look at relocation of all those, and not knowing fully until we did survey how much of an easement that we would need to take. It's tough for me to try to guess, an approximate cost on a land taking for a roadway easement. It's about a quarter of the property. Could be a little less, could be a little more once we get real survey information. And I guess, my thought on it is how many of those trucks are gonna turn left, to be perfectly honest. They're not gonna go north to go up to Tingsboro to get on Route 3 South. They're gonna continue the way that they're traveling on Dunstable Road to Swain, to Groton, and out. So to say that everybody's would not go left, I'm sure some vehicles would, but I'm hesitant to think it'll solve all the issue.
What's the distance from, if they were to turn left, what's the distance from there
1 mile
To-
to Route 3.
to Route 3? Okay,
Yeah.
and the distance they're going, if they turn right, is probably also about a
A
mile.
little more maybe, but
Yeah,
it's
so
about
it's
4
longer.
turns. About 4 major turns that way.
Yeah.
And a lot of foot traffic. There's no foot traffic towards the Tingsboro way. There's plenty of foot
You gotta
traffic.
get closer to your mic.
Sorry. There's plenty of foot traffic on the current way. So, it would really help, if they could do it. Like Steve said, it's a jump ball, I guess.
Comments, questions?
I'll make a comment after watching what he just showed us, and I agree. You probably get some trucks to take a left, maybe 70% of them. I feel bad for the people who just bought that house. That's quite a wake-up call that they're gonna lose.
Yeah.
What's that work out to, Steve, 20% of their land?
It's
Yeah.
significant.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then I look at the house across the street that's gonna have all those trucks making that turn. They're probably gonna, my guess is they're gonna overshoot a little bit, and that loop driveway there is gonna take a hit. I'm not saying I'm for or against it, I'm just saying you gotta keep that in mind. Two residents are gonna be taking quite a toll on their house for everybody else. Just we have to go into that with eyes wide open, what we're doing here.
You're
You know,
talking
putting the
about this
burden on
house
two
here,
people.
Ken, across the street?
Yeah, with the people with the turnabout driveway. I'm sure those trucks are gonna overshoot and end up driving in their lawn and part of their driveway.
Pat, you have anything?
I agree with Ken. It is definitely going to impact the close-in neighbors. I guess I wouldn't see any drawback to reaching out and seeing what they have to say.
Right.
They might just flat out say, no way.
Yeah.
Or,
I think we still should proceed forward.
Yeah.
But I think we need to hear from the residents so they know they gotta know what they're getting into.
Right.
You don't wanna just go out there, start digging up the road and working around them and, hey, surprise.
Mark, do you have anything else?
Yeah, I'm just trying to understand what the real benefit will be from the traffic standpoint. In other words, how many trucks are going to benefit by being able to go left versus going right? So what's the real value there?
It depends what percentage does make the change.
What would that be?
Well, there's about 200 trucks a day right now,
It's 200?
roughly.
Okay,
And
and
you're
you're
going
talking
through all
about
the
the difference between a
neighborhoods.
mile and a 2/10
But
or
it's
something?
it's a completely different type of road, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
It's-
no, I know the road, yeah.
Yeah.
You take a left, you know, you go down, it's one light, you're on the highway, it's pretty
Mhm.
straight. You take a right, you're bobbing and weaving through other neighborhoods, jumping
Right.
across roads, a couple more intersections to get to the highway.
Paul, what's the process for talking to the residents in that area?
I think what we would do is, I think the thing to do would be we could send out the plan, you know, with a cover letter, and I think we could, I think invite people to come, tune in or to join in, you know, probably a May 3rd meeting to give adequate time, and then see where we are after a discussion that evening. You know, in terms of.
And I think we should call it like a tentative,
Yeah, no,
whatever,
a
not a
conceptual,
plan, because
Right.
We don't want to think
we're
it's not a done
anywhere near
deal.
finalizing.
It's a
Right,
concept.
a
And then I
concept.
think, you know, and I think that'd be the way to proceed and get some reaction and feedback from the neighborhood. You know, I think I also would do is I also would send a notice to the Tingsboro Town Administrator, Matt Hanson, and just let him know that the board's, you know, what's going on. So again, nobody's blindsided. You know, not looking for Matt or them to weigh in, but at least let them know that, you know, this is going forward. Just as, I think if something was being in another town, we'd want that same courtesy.
Sure. And we would just call that segment of the agenda a public input session.
Yeah, exactly.
Not to be snarky about it, but in the same sort of, you know,
Microphone, Ken?
the same sort of, I don't know what the right word is, respect that Westford gave us with the asphalt.
Well, we don't want to, you know,
I don't wanna
follow
use that as our-
all the worst
I know.
practices of
We want to be better than that, right?
We do.
I have another question. So when we're talking about the abutters, we've got obviously the person who would be getting the easement, and then the abutter right across the street that has the driveway that they'll probably be cutting around. Are we also going to contact some of the other people
Oh, yeah.
up the road a bit, right?
Yes.
Because they're going to be seeing a lot more traffic.
Yeah.
I'm sure everybody on Ledge Road is gonna know about it too.
Yeah.
Exactly. I think we just.
Okay, I just wanna make sure that-
Do a notification of 200 feet.
Right.
And that way we're getting
Would
both
you-
sides.
would that get you down to like Swain and the corner of Main and Groton as well, which is where all the issues are now, so that you get kind of both sides
200 feet.
to be able to speak?
That's about a quarter to a half a mile.
More than that, yeah, it's way more than that, yeah. I mean, it's more than 200 feet.
Yeah, from Ledge Road to Swain Road?
But 200 feet is not a quarter mile.
Right.
No, I said it's much more than 200 feet, sorry.
All I'm saying is, should we have this be kind of a balanced input?
Sure. Yeah, we'll also, we'll notify people on Swain Road. Yeah, because that way you'll get it from all sides.
Yeah.
And also the people on Ledge Road, because
Right.
they should know what's going on at the intersection as well, so. Okay. Yeah, so we'll do our best to publicly notify in terms of website, mailings, you know.
It's so heated out there
Social
too.
media. What's that?
Yeah, it's so heated out there anyways, it's, you know, people are gonna be talking about it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
At least, you know, because the same question is going to come at town meeting. They're going to say, well, were people notified? So we, you know,
Yep.
so you can't, like you said, we just can't show up and say, here's what we're doing. Okay.
Okay. Next topic, Paul?
Okay, thank you.
The turnaround?
The next item, just, Steve, can you just give a quick update on the bus turnaround? And I know the unexpected delay you've run into?
Well, yeah, so, I mean, we have the plans, we got the appraisal back, the plans are finalized. We were in the process of preparing, or finalizing, I guess, with, Scott had prepared the order of taking for it since we received the appraisal. And then, the property owner, Mr. Gomet, passed away a couple of weeks ago. And now Scott is out with a medical emergency himself, so it's kind of you know, on hold for the moment. One of the Gilmets works for us, so we're kind of, you know, we're getting a little insight on kind of where it stands. We're friendly with a lot of the family up there, so we're giving them their time before we start kind of reaching back out with what we were planning on, or, you know, the final documents anyway. So we're just kind of sitting in limbo with the property at the moment, but, hopefully we get moving forward on that soon.
Thank you,
Thank
Steve.
you. Town manager reports?
Sure, I have a bunch of items to just quickly touch upon this evening. The first one is the access agreement for the North Chelmsford Water District monitoring wells. I have this on here, you'll see it on here again. Paul Haverty has informed me that he has sent that out. As of today, I have not heard it been completed, so at this point, I just want the board to know that we're working on that, and I know you authorized me to execute it, and as soon as I get it done, I'll report back to you. So again, I put these on last Thursday, so that way I can bring them up. On the senior center building rooftop solar array, Gary Persichetti is here. As you may recall, and I think it was really Emily Antul who pushed this, the idea was, could we get more solar on some of the town buildings? You remember we looked at the town halls, and that wasn't structurally possible, but we do have good news, and I'll ask Gary to sort of bring us up to date on what we do have for the senior center in terms of getting a solar array on there and how we would go about doing it. I see Gary's picture right there. Go ahead, Gary.
Great thing again. As you know, probably better than a year and a half ago, we did a structural review of the roof. Found out the roof can take solar, but at that point, it needed a new roof put on it, which has been done. So that part is all set. So the next thing is you have to get into a power options agreement. As part of that, you're renting your roof for the 20 years, which is the reason why we're here, and that we would have to go in front of town meeting for that approval. Basically, it will consist of an 86.7 kilowatt array on the roof. The annual PV for the first year is 100,000 kWh. That is an avoidance over the 20 years of 1,500 tons of carbon. The avoided cost or the savings over the 20 years to the senior center is roughly $127,000, and the rent over the 20 years is $15,820.
So basically, that's how we would go about it. The issue is as Gary noted, and why I noted there, town meeting vote required to lease the roof. We don't have we don't have an article on the warrant for the spring annual town meeting to do that. So that leaves us with two options. One is to wait till the fall and put it on the fall annual town meeting at the end of October. The only other sooner thing, and you'll see this with the next item as well, is in the past, we have scheduled special town meetings for late items that arise to occur during the time of the annual town meetings. Usually we do it for the second session, and then we sort of begin that night and go from there. So that's one thing we keep in mind. Again, I don't need a vote this evening. For a special town meeting, you need 14 days posting notice. So realistically, you need about 3 or so weeks in order to do that. And I'm not asking for a vote at this point, but if you also have a next item that also would maybe need a town meeting vote. So I just asked the board to keep that in mind, and perhaps even at our next meeting next week, if you wish to accelerate this as well as the other one on Stedman Street, I can work with Paul Haverty to prepare a warrant to have you sign, and then we can schedule that. But obviously, I need a date, and I don't want to go into that issue that is a bit still turbulent and unsettled. But we certainly don't want to. I need a date to do that, because we don't want to call a special town meeting for 2 ministerial items and have to do a complete setup at whatever date we choose. In other words, it should be linked to the annual town meeting for efficiency purposes, and it's a courtesy to the town meeting reps who wouldn't have to come out on a totally separate evening. So,
Is there a rush or a deadline for the solar array?
No, and I don't think there is one for the Stedman thing either. But my job is to make you aware of the options.
So you could go that route, or you could say wait till
Or we
the
can say,
fall.
see you in the fall, yeah, and then we'll we'll get approval in the fall, and then you're really talking, for something like this, a solar array, you're probably talking a 2022 project, because by the time you leave fall town meeting, construction and so forth, you're not gonna do it over the winter months.
Gary wants to say
Go ahead,
something.
Gary.
I just wanted to let you know that when this was looked at before, which was basic, well, if you bring this back to a couple of years ago, the savings would have been more closer to $197,000, where it's now $127,000. The reason for that is because solar has grown so much. The SRECs are down. They're on different kinds of systems now. We cannot make the systems that they were before. Now they have a power option A and a power option B, which are what are being offered. So they're lower than what they were. So another delay would definitely not keep us from doing the solar at all. It could definitely be done. I just couldn't guarantee that the same option would be in front of us if we wait till another town meeting, only because it's all governed by the government as to what SRECs, what they're putting out there for their options.
Gary, are there any other buildings in town that they could look at doing this with? If we're going to wait till fall town meeting, could you look at other buildings and get another one going so that, in the meantime?
Actually, we're in the process of looking at the Chelmsford Forum. As we speak, we're looking into that. That's a little more, can take a little more time, but that's being worked on. The only other thing we thought of is, we haven't had a chance to get them to evaluate, was I know they wanted us to try to put solar on the Center for the Arts in the Old North Town Hall. So we were going to take a better look at the new salt shed on DPW Alpha Road. The only thing there is we'll have to look at the tree line, but if that roof can support it, which has not had a structural study done yet, then maybe that can take some on there that would help the fact that we can't get them on the other two buildings. So yes, we are continuing to look.
Well, Paul, since we only need basically 2 or 3 weeks' notice, we could actually do this in May then.
Yes, exactly, that's what I said, but,
It doesn't have to be next
no, it doesn't have to be next Tuesday, it doesn't have to, but,
Maybe
yeah.
we could wait and see if some of these others are feasible and
Exactly.
do one.
But again,
And-
that's why I'm just giving
Yeah.
you time to think about it. I don't want to just show up one night with a warrant and say, well, now you're asking us to sign a warrant without any notice, so, definitely, okay.
Gary, what's your-
I'm sorry, go ahead.
What's your turnaround on the other two buildings?
It's a little,
Yeah, the form's a little tough. We have two issues. One is the building structurally is in the town of Barrica, so we'll have to reach out there as well to see what we're doing with them. And then as far as the salt shed goes, as I said, we have not even had a structural review. That was sort of an afterthought of maybe. So I think the first thing would be is to have them do the general, where they don't actually do a flyover, but they look at the flyovers and then they start to look at the angles of the trees to how much sun you're gonna get. And I think that would be their first determination to see if there's enough of the roof that they believe is viable for enough sunlight. And then if that's the case, they would instruct me and I would have a structural review done of it. And then we'd move on from there.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So I'm gathering from the discussion, there's still general interest in looking at this. It's just a question of timing.
yeah.
Mhm.
Exactly. Okay, all right, I'll move on. The next item is, we received correspondence since the last select board meeting from a John Langner, who's a resident of Stedman Street, and he writes a 7-page email, and I know you all received it, so I won't go through it, but basically, he's explaining the difficulties that he's experiencing regarding living on a road that abuts a road in another town that's in Lowell that's spelled a different way. And his proposal is to return to town meeting, or, have town meeting correct the issue of the spelling of Stedman Street to make it uniform with Lowell, which would be to drop the A from Stedman Street. I've sent this to Town Council Paul Haverty. I've not received a response at this point in time. I did also forward documents from the town clerk that reveal from the records that it was the Chelmsford way was adopted with the A in the spelling. again, we've heard from one resident, I don't know how universal this is or what other people could, I do know it's a big deal to change somebody's street address because as he's noting, all the issues he's running into. So again, that also may require a town meeting vote. So at this point, again, I'm not asking for an action this evening, I'm just bringing it up, as an awareness to you. Obviously, you've seen the email, but also to the community that, again, there may be this issue about trying to address the concerns regarding Stedman Street in Chelmsford. So again, I'll let you know as soon as I hear from Paul Haverty. And also, Paul will be coming to one of your meetings, I think in May, to meet with you anyway. I'm also scheduling that as well. So either at that time or prior to that, I'll come back to this. But it's just another item, as I noted on the agenda, that a town meeting vote was requested by Mr. Langner, again, where I've got town council researching this.
Any questions, comments? Okay.
Okay, the next item is a firefighter safety equipment grant award, and I know Gary Ryan is on the call, so I'll have Gary did all the work on this, and I'll have Gary explain what he's done and how the grant monies will be used. Good evening, Gary.
Thank you, Mr. Manager. Good evening, board members, and welcome to our newest board member, Mr. Cronin. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Manager. Very happy to hear from the Department of Fire Services that we received over $10,000 to purchase a washer extractor machine. And what that is it's used to wash our turnout gear. This vital equipment will be brought over to Engine 2 when the project is completed. But in general, very happy within the past year that we've received $24,000 between this grant we received last week and we received one 12 months ago for over $13,000. So we've been able to purchase 2 machines within a year, considering we were using one machine for over 20 years. So these grants are very hard to get. They're very competitive. And my thanks to my staff, Deputy Donahue and Anna Griffin, who works in my office, to really push these grants and chase these down to address our operational needs. So thank you.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Next item, again, the board's aware of, but just to make the community aware, at the last planning board meeting, the planning board did grant approval to the permit at 330 Barrica Road, which would be the future home of Press Cafe. So again, it's really notable because it's an introduction of amenities into the business district, which I know has been long sought. And if you also, I was driving through there yesterday on a couple occasions. Clearly, the other building with amenities on Mill Road, across from the old Lifelinks location, that building is nearing completion as well. So I think we're really hitting the stride in terms of getting some amenities into the 129 commercial corridor, or Chelmsford Crossroads as we know it. And towards that end, the other thing to note, again, I sent it to the board, but I want the community to be aware, is there was recently a sale at 199 and 201 Riverneck Road, which is the former Mercury computer site, which was owned, it was purchased by the Davis companies for $15 million. I expect at some point we are going to receive some communication and outreach regarding the proposed use of the site. I can tell you, when checking with Community Development Director Evan Belansky, we've not received any conceptual plan or proposal for that site. Again, it's also a good indication that, that as we're coming out of the pandemic, you see something like this happen in Chelmsford. I know Evan has had I've had some brief initial discussions in terms of the site. They're obviously aware of the sewer moratorium. They're also aware that, vehicular traffic from there, if they're talking about going to the highways, they either could go down to the cemetery and go out 129, or go the other direction, which is even more of a adventure through neighborhoods and so forth if you're trying to get to the highway. So again, I just want you to know that, let the community know that this property it's a significant transaction in our commercial corridor. And also, we do not have a definitive plan in terms of what they're proposing to use. And much like we'll do with the next agenda item, once we have something, we'll inform the community. And again, it's probably something that would end up going before the planning board for approvals. And then towards that, the next item I kept alluding to is the redevelopment of 255 255 Princeton Street, the former UMass Lowell West Campus. I provided a copy to the board of correspondence that was sent by Trammell Crow Residential to the neighbors, abutters of the former UMass Lowell West Campus, basically informing them or making sure they know that they're seeking to develop a first-class apartment complex at 255 Princeton Street, and basically touting their experience as a multifamily development company with over 40 years' experience, and looking forward to working with their neighbors in the town of Chelmsford on this exciting new project. I will inform the board, as was suggested at the last meeting, I did reach out to Evan Belansky that for that tentative date on Thursday, April 29th. He did reach out, he told me earlier today, he did reach out, the developer is available at 6 p.m. that evening. So all I'm waiting to hear back from now is whether the planning board's available at 6 that night. And then we'll have a virtual meeting, because there's too many to have the planning board, select board in a together meeting, even with the developer online. So I will confirm with you that date once it gets confirmed with me, when Evan hears back from the planning board. But again, that's, and the other one I know who wants to speak to you about this project is David Hedersen, and I know he may have reached out to some of you. I know David's going to be meeting with the Housing Advisory Board, I believe, this week or next week. David just has some concerns about affordability. In other words, he wants to make sure that affordable units are affordable. 'Cause Evan and I had a brief conference call with David. His concern is, and again, he can best articulate it, but when you have an 80% median family income for units in the Chelmsford market, right now you need like an income of $61,000 to pay the rent for a type of development. And I think David's concerned about whether there is such a market for that, and are those really affordable units? And are there, so anyway, I know David's going to the Housing Advisory Board, and so I imagine, again, within the next month, there'll be discussions between the town, the developer, as well as with David Hedersen. And then the path forward, I think, will be determined by those discussions. Does it involve a rezoning at town meeting, or does it involve a friendly, affordable housing project, a friendly local initiative project? So that's where that stands at this point in time. Next item was a follow-up from the last item, a double pole report. I provided a copy. I did obtain one from National Grid for the double poles. And it sort of touches down the next item in terms of the fire alarm call boxes. And Gary Ryan's here on the call, and I think I think probably the best thing for me to do is turn it over to Gary to give you an up-to-date on where we are with the whole issue of the fire alarm cable, the call boxes, and so forth. And so, Gary, I'll stop at this point.
Are you done with double poles, or?
No, he's going to tie it in, because
okay.
a number of the double poles are waiting for actions by the fire department, which is our fire cable.
Okay,
And
I don't have an understanding of the process. I know this came up, but I think other
okay.
people are
I'll
at least
do
more
my
up to
best
speed
to
than
tell
I
you.
am, so
All right,
I see the report, but I have no idea
All
what
right.
it means.
Let me give a quick start, and I know
Okay.
Gary Perskettis can help me if I get it. Basically, what happens is we have utility poles permitted by the board, as we know earlier this evening, in the right-of-way, and you have locators on that pole. National Grid, Verizon, Town of Chelmsford for our fiber optic cable in some cases, for our communications network, and/or our fire alarm system. You've got Comcast, you've got Verizon Fios on those poles, and then you also, some cases, have private providers that have leased space from the pole owners. So when a pole gets damaged or removed, and you get the double pole, or pole gets damaged, you've got to relocate all of those utilities to the new pole. And basically, they have a computerized system that all the utility providers, including the town of Chelmsford, have access to. And then basically, you've got a next-in-line project. And generally, you start with your electricity, and then you go down to your telephone, the town, and so forth. And that's how they keep the line moving.
And who manages that? The utility company?
The utilities companies operate the system, and then the towns and the other providers have access and passwords. So what happens is they give you a status of the pole, where it's located, the pole number, and then they tell you who's next in line in terms of relocating to the new pole, once the new pole is set. And that's how you remove a double pole. And then what happens is you don't go until the person ahead of you goes. And what we noticed on the report that you received, the next to go, which is that far right column, in a number of cases was the town of Chelmsford or our Chelmsford Fire Department.
Okay.
And then you see others are National Grid, MA, which is National Grid, and then you get Verizon and so forth. So I've asked Gary on the call to sort of bring up to date on the work with the double poles as well as the work which is related to the double poles that has to do with the call boxes in the community. So with that, I'll turn it over to Gary, and then we can answer any more general questions. Go ahead, Gary.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Manager. So the National Grid report that you have in front of you, that you received last week, showed the fire department is the next to remove on 42 of those double poles. But if you may recall, over the past month, the fire department, working with DPW, we have worked together to address the street fire alarm boxes that were deemed a liability concern because they were no longer working. So together, within the past month, fire department with DPW have safely removed over 150 street boxes from the town of Chelmsford. So my thanks to DPW Director Gary Persichetti, Facilities Director Kathleen Canvan, and their staff for doing this in such a short period of time. With that said, our focus has transitioned to double poles. So within the past week, the fire department has safely removed the fire alarm wiring, the red cable that you see. If you look at the poles, we safely removed 20 of the double poles from the 42. So that means we have 22 double poles that have our fire alarm right now that need to be removed. We cannot do it. We need an outside vendor, an outside qualified vendor to safely remove our fire alarm cable because it's connected to the town's fiber. So we can't remove it. DPW can't remove it. We need the use and expertise of an outside vendor. With that said, the town manager had a meeting earlier today with myself, Deputy Chief Mike Donahue, the DPW director, Assistant Town Manager Steve Maffetone, to devise a long-term solution to addressing the fire alarm wiring that we have throughout town. Like I mentioned in my presentation before the board, I think it was last month, that system was developed since 1920. We have fire alarm cable throughout town. So we are looking to maybe engage an outside vendor to safely remove that fire alarm cable. With that said, the town is always going to be kind of in the double pole business, if you will, because the fiber exists on the pole. So as the town manager explained, even if Comcast removes their utilities, National Grid does, the town has fiber, so the town will always have this double pole report. And I will try to answer any questions you may have.
So what we're doing in the long run is we're removing the fire alarm cable from it, so that'll free, because most of our fiber cable is on main roads. You know, out here, you know, it goes to the Byam School, it goes to DPW, it goes to the cemetery. Whereas the fire alarm pull box system, and I understand that, you know, you get the red boxes pull for fire, and, you know, there were some on, as Gary said, they were all over the place, and we got miles of line coming down. So the goal is removing that will take us out of the equation for a lot of the double poles going forward. And then we'll just then focus going forward on the fiber for relocation. It also, as we said, we removed the boxes because we didn't want a situation where, you know, somebody on River Meadow goes out to the street, pulls the box thinking somebody's coming, and there's nobody coming. So that was an immediate concern in terms of public safety, and now our focus is to go and get the fire alarm cable removed. And it's ironic, we just heard, 2 weeks ago, Gary, that Barrica is doing the same thing, and we now,
Barrica started the same process.
and that's going to affect us at the forum, because as Gary Persichetti noted earlier, the forum building's in Barrica, so now we have to go off of that system and basically go to a wireless alarm system, private monitor. So basically, it's a technology it's like those call boxes that used to be on the highway in 495. It was a technology that had its time, but we're now past that time.
Yep.
So that's what we're doing, and we're, like I said, we're getting quotes from vendors because there's some poles that we can't even reach with our equipment because they're so far set from the road, as well as the fact that these town fiber cable, the fire alarm cable is near electrical lines, so you just can't send a non-electrician up into a truck, you know, for safety reasons. So I just wanted to let the board know that, you know, you have the double pole report, we're on it. The other thing I'll close on this is, we understand that sometimes these reports aren't accurate. So I think once we get our take our cable off and everything down, we'll then really be able to hone in on what's left and make sure that the list is complete, because there's two errors. One is you have an error of a thing that's on the list and it's inaccurate, or you have something that's not on the list but is a double pole. And so that's what we'll do to resolve the situation. But now that the weather is with us, because you really don't be doing this work in the cold winter, and also things were slowed by the pandemic, which would have been our normal approach last fall. We're moving on these items as the Chief Ryan just described. So that sort of covers the double pole report and the removal of the fire alarm call boxes. The next item I have, and John Souza is here this evening, but I'll sort of touch upon it. John, is our finance director, and Darlene Lucier, who I know was on the call earlier, but I think she may have dropped off. But we're keeping abreast of our financial situation during the pandemic, and the town receives its meals and hotel room excise tax quarterly. We just got the third quarter of the fiscal year, meaning right through March, a couple weeks ago, and John sent me the report, and John prepared his holistic summary spreadsheet. And what I want to point out is it's good news. The good news is through, we'll start with hotel and room occupancy. Through the first 3 quarters of this fiscal year, i.e. June through March, the town has received $266,000 in room occupancy tax. Through this same period of 9 months for the prior fiscal year, which really would be before the pandemic started, you got basically, because even though it's distributed in March, you're really getting revenues from February, because it's a month delay between when a vendor collects it and turns it over. So if you really think the pandemic really didn't start till March a year ago, during that period, basically we received $128,000 less than the equivalent period, or about a third less in hotel and room occupancy taxes than we did a year ago during the pandemic month versus a year ago non-pandemic. The good news is the budget, as I said, to date is $266,000. The last quarter we collected $79,000. The budget that we used for this year's budget was only $125,000. So we're well over the budget forecast, because the Department of Revenue encourages communities to budget conservatively. And as you can saw, the last quarter, last June, we got $4,000 for that, when the pandemic really took hold. So that's the good news on the room occupancy tax. On the meals tax, it's even better news. To date, we've collected $439,000 in meals tax, again, for the period of last July 1 through this end of March. For that same period a year ago, we collected $556,000. So we're only $17,000 off from a year ago, or 21%. And if you look at the last quarter, we're only down 16%. So you look at that 3-month period, which is probably December through February of 20 versus 21. We're only off 16%. Given the pandemic, that's a pretty good outcome, and I think better than we had ever envisioned. Again, we'll see the last quarter. We think the last quarter should continue to be stronger, because you can see the trend picking up, and clearly now with people outside and the pandemic, having vaccines and so forth. The good news is the budget for this was only $325,000. So we've exceeded the budget by over $100,000 at this point with a quarter to go. So it's good news in terms of meals and rooms tax. Again, we won't get our final distribution till the end of June, so we'll report it at that time. But the good news is, between the meals and rooms tax revenue, as well as that unforeseen $1 million permit for the building permit, Thermo Fisher, the bottom line is we will certainly exceed our local receipts budget, which basically generate free cash for up close of the fiscal year. So that's the update on meals and rooms taxes. And then the last item I have for you in terms of an update is the sewer flow report. And I know Gary and Steve are still on here, but basically what I've provided for you is the calendar year flow for the year 2020, as well as the fiscal year flow for the current fiscal year. And why I did that is because two things. One is you want to see where are we, but also you would say, well, where are we going to go over the next 3 months if we were looking at a year ago by using the calendar year report. And the good news is, in a summary, is we're basically running level from where we were a year ago. If in terms of flow, at at this point, if you were to take the flow for the 9 months of this year that we have right now and then use last year's numbers, we would be basically at 941. And you can see in the bottom center of the flows for FY '21 or either page, the flow summaries, you can see a year ago we were 945. So we're basically running even score for, again, a year with basically in a pandemic to at this point. So we're roughly 1.47%, I'm sorry, 1.47 flow over the 3-month period of looking at the trends in terms of January till March. So we're about 1.73% behind. So again, if you project for the last 3 months of this year, the bottom line story is our sewer flow has been relatively constant. If you look at our flow summaries, and if you can see we really hit the peak in FY '19, and even the numbers for this year are even going to be less than what it was in '18. So we're at roughly 945 in 20 fiscal year, and it looks like 21 will be about the same. So the good news is even though we're in a sewer moratorium, it's not impacting, the moratorium is not impacting the traditional residential or different activities in the community. What obviously remains to be seen is going forward, when business returns more towards normal and people either, you have the commercial flow, but then what does that do to the residential side of the flow? The other thing that impacts us is the weather. And we know we're in an abnormally dry period of weather again, because weather brings inflow, particularly into places like Lowell and so forth, and a little bit in our system. So the good news is we are tracking our flow. And then sort of the closing comment is we are scheduling with Weston and Sampson, who is commissioned to do the capacity study. We have provided them with your dates, where your next meeting date is next Tuesday. I doubt they're going to be ready because they'd have to have their report into us by this Thursday, but we'll have them come in May. I'm hopeful it'll be the May 3rd meeting, but it'll certainly be in May in terms of giving you a report of where things stand in terms of sewer flow and the sewer study. But the good news is that we're in a sort of a static situation at this point in time. And again, as soon as we get the data reports, we'll have Weston and Sampson at a meeting and provide you with the detail and data, and then what's ahead of us going forward. I mean, let's not kid ourselves. We're not going to be out of this moratorium this October upon the anniversary of the first year. But I think it's in a case where we're not in a panic situation where it's obstructing the normal activities within the town. So that concludes the items that I have listed on my report this evening, Madam Chair.
Any questions?
The only other thing I'll mention, and I just and the reason I put these things on the agenda, because again, we don't want to run afoul of the open meeting law, but I just wanted the board to be aware, and I'm not going to ask you to take any action, but if you have any suggestions, received word today that the House is scheduled to a normal budget. I mean, the House of Representatives of the State House in Massachusetts are scheduled on a normal budgetary pattern. And you may recall I did send out an email to you about the fact that it appears that they have a local aid resolution which is going to exceed even what the governor provided for our budgeting purposes. So we're good to that for going into town meeting. But what I'm really trying to get at right now is the House Ways and Means budget is going to be released this Wednesday. Members have till this Friday to get amendments in, and then the House is going to debate and vote the budget as customary in 2 weeks at the last week of April. So why I mention this is it's kind of like what you're seeing at the federal level. Given that the state's revenues are in pretty solid shape, exceeded what they anticipated with the pandemic, I spoke to Representative Tom Golden earlier today and said, Tom, given where things are at, is it possible that there'll be, I guess you could call them earmarks, or local assistance? You remember in the past we've gotten in the budget money for the business community and so forth, the grants. And so I said, Tom, I'm going to see the board tonight, but I just wanted to let the board know that what I mentioned to Tom is two possibilities, and they actually happen to fall in his district. One would be, could we get funding in the state budget and a direction in the state budget to construct the sidewalk from Vinyl Square to Williamsburg? I know that's been an issue, and George is aware, and others about, from the Vinyl Square Committee, because when the state, on short notice to us, redid the roadway project, they didn't address the sidewalk issue. So I'm working with DPW to get a rough estimate of that cost so that we can put something into, put in an amendment to the state budget to get that funded and authorized. But that's not something we would do because that's a state roadway. But I'm seeing if Representative Golden could get language in there to say, hey, can we get language directing the Mass DOT to construct the sidewalk, and here's the funding to do it. And then the other thing is, in speaking to our veterans agent, Regina Jackson, and this is something else we're working on with DPW, when they recently had a ceremony up in Vinyl Square, the Vietnam Veterans Monument is leaning. And we think it has something to do with the base. When it was installed and so forth. So I've asked Representative Golden if he can do, this is a more modest amount of money, obviously, to see if he can put funding in there for the restoration of the Vietnam Veterans Monument in Vinyl Square. And then basically, again, we would have a contracted company, probably a monument company, come out there, reset it, re-brick it, and then have it an appropriate appearance so that when, again, we do return there on better days, at least it'll be appropriate and address that concern. So, and the final reason I mentioned is if there's something else that you have in terms of a thought for Chelmsford, in terms of funding and so forth, please, my advice would be contact any of the reps and/or Senator Barrett, because the same process is going to go on in the Senate next month in May in terms of anything that's special. I can tell you this. I received a word from Representative Laurie Trahan's office, because you may have read that they're now doing earmarks in the congressional budget. And so the only thing I thought of, and I spoke to them last Friday, and I was disappointed to hear, I was the only one who suggested that they put a funding request in to expand and the capacity and address the issues at the Greater Lowell wastewater treatment plant. So I said, and they said to me, well, what's the number? I said, I can't tell you what that number is, but I said, perhaps if you could connect with the folks in Lowell, and certainly you'd have support from Tingsboro and Drake and Tewksbury, that perhaps is something, because we know Representative Trahan has been very outspoken about the clean Merrimack River and the sewer overflow. So I did mention that to the Congresswoman's office about a week. Again, I spoke to him last Friday after I sent something in about a week ago. And then the last one I mentioned, and again, has to do with the town, but this again is more local, is to improve and it's another state issue, is to improve the pedestrian crossing at Mill Road and Barrica Road. If you go out there by 129, it's within the state right-of-way, so we can't do it. But it's not the state interchange either. It's that right-of-way that comes in from the highway. And if you're at the corner of Mill Road, and again, thinking of 330 and so forth, you can't cross there. It's not a pedestrian crossing. You have to come all the way back down, almost down towards Omni, to cross. And so again, we got an estimate from DPW, and I asked them if that might be possible. Again, we don't know what's going to happen in Washington with the infrastructure bill or with the budget, but I just wanted to know that this is the season in terms of the suggestion. So again, if anybody watching this has a suggestion, again, you can reach out to the congressman or the representative's office, and again, if the board members or the community let us know, and we can do what we have. So that's where things stand at this point. So thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you for allowing me to.
Thank you, Paul.
Again, not looking for a vote, but just wanted to bring you up to date on everything that's transpiring at this point in time.
Any other comments or questions?
All the people that are at the Best Western?
Yeah.
State's paying?
State's paying for that, yeah. We've.
Do we get tax revenue?
We
from
believe
the
we get
state?
rooms and meals excise tax from that. I can tell you that Chief Spinney, and Gary Ryan's on the call as well still, and I know Chief Spinney's on the call, but Chief Spinney has informed us that the situation has improved in the last few weeks over there,
Right.
although occasionally there have been some medical calls over at the situation. But yeah, that's my understanding is from the past is that we did receive room excise tax, and that probably explains those numbers that you're seeing in there, because
Just curious.
they're higher than what we expected, and it's probably the only logical explanation
And
as
yet
to
the
why
other
that-
one's closing, right? Is it
Right.
the Radisson
Right.
or-
Well, yeah, you're talking the Best Western, and then there's a few
Holiday
people
Inn.
also in the Holiday Inn Express. And again, we've not, same thing on the Radisson. We've not received any proposal for redevelopment of the Radisson. I know you've heard mentioned about, they want to convert it to residential and so forth. Well, again, if that's the plan, that's not happening in the near future under the moratorium either. What we were told a year ago when they closed it for renovations was that they were going to rebrand under a new affiliation. So I'm not sure if you read in between the lines of it.
Yeah.
The Radisson's not going to open, but may it either open as another hotel or another facility, we don't know. So that's where things stand at this point.
Also, that Davis Company, was that the one that was kind of like a senior, was that the one that was concentrating on putting in like a senior development?
No. They seem, we don't have a definitive plan. They have talked a little bit about commercial. I know there's been discussions at the
Yeah.
planning board about,
But there was a company
fulfillment centers and
wanted
so
to-
forth, but we've not seen anything. What we have heard, and again, I'm just telling you what I know, is they've looked at the possibility of taking the buildings out. And if that's the case, that's quite
Oh.
an investment, because now you're talking 15 million plus.
Oh, a lot of money.
So, yeah, it's a lot of money, because you remember the company that bought it out of Manchester, New Hampshire, they held on to it for a few years and never came forward with anything.
Those are big buildings over there.
Yeah. So again, I just telling you everything we know, because I know rumors and speculation sort of is out there. We've not seen anything, and as soon as we do, we'll get it to you and the planning board, because we know these are very sensitive issues in the community.
That's, I forget the square footage of vacancy that's there. I think it's 600,000 or something.
Yeah.
You take that out of the 129 mix, that's a substantial.
It's going to bring down your vacancy space
Vacancies.
significantly. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's amazing in terms of, the 278,000 industrial, site. That's huge. That's a
All right, so
significant.
almost 300,000.
Yeah, almost
square feet,
300,000.
It would be a perfect senior development over there. I mean, that'd be a city in itself.
Yeah.
I thought they had a great idea when the
Yeah.
company was.
278,000 square feet of industrial land, 96,000 square foot light industrial facility. So it's a lot of space and a
Yeah.
lot of land. And so that's where we're at this point. And you know the other thing I emailed you the end of last week, and speaking, if we're going to be talking about development on the the Route 40 corridor, talking to Win Len Liu, again, if you have any suggestions or whatever, let us know. I mean, obviously, it's the same thing. She wants to go forward with something, but is running into difficulties. In this case, it's with the water utility, in terms of the water charge to enhance that line. And as you saw from my notes on that, Evan and I suggested perhaps a MassWorks grant, but we also wanted to be realistic with her and say,
Probably not going to get it.
I don't want to send you down a road of false hope, because it's probably not a very competitive project compared to the other projects that may get submitted. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. The next agenda item is the meeting minutes, and Christina Bruce is going to join us to just give us an orientation on the review process, especially with Vivian leaving, and we have a new recording secretary coming on board, and the current way that we've been providing input has been causing confusion, so I'm just going to let Christina put this in context for us.
Good evening, thank you very much. So as you know, Vivian, who took the minutes for many years, will no longer be doing that. So thank you to Vivian for her years of efforts for the board. And we had been in a trial period with a couple of new recording secretaries. One of them did one set of minutes and then realized it wasn't a good fit. It was a little bit more involved than she had been looking for. So we now have Trish Gedzian taking the minutes remotely from the video recordings of meetings. She does minutes for many boards. She used to work for the town of Nashua, city of Nashua. So she's pretty experienced. So as the board has just reorganized, appointed a new clerk, and we're working with a new person, it's a good time to tighten up what that process will be. Obviously, the board can, has many options for how you decide to make edits, whether you, all make edits through one person, or one person makes edits, then sends that document to another person who makes edits on that same document. However we work it out. But my only request would be if that process could end with only one edited document going back to the recording secretary rather than having multiple differently edited documents with edits from different people going back to the recording secretary. That has been onerous and more time consuming and has been causing a little confusion. So however the board prefers to do it, if it could just end with one document with various edits, people's edits on that one document, that would be helpful.
So basically with Vivian, she would send it out to everybody, and she was the collector of comments. And so what the request is that we streamline that for the recording secretary and maybe do some, either send all comments to one person or do a serial comment so we're editing over each other's.
So if the meeting minutes come out, should we all just edit them and send them back to Mark?
Well, that's the discussion right now.
Yeah,
So
I think that makes most sense where he's.
How will that fit? So typically what I'm used to is you'd have one document with everyone's input into it. Track changes, everyone's input.
Right.
Is that what you're suggesting now? Or having everyone's come in and try to do a merge?
However,
Yeah, because the
it
merge,
makes sense.
sometimes
So
that works.
if you want one document with everyone's edits, then it's a question of how do you implement that? Is it a chain, or do we just set up a Google Doc somewhere, a shared document somewhere where we can all just go in at our convenience by a certain deadline and put the comments in, and then, maybe you as the clerk are the point person for the recording secretary?
The process today is it go to Pat first? Is that what
We've done it,
going
we've
on,
done
or-
it, so typically with Vivian, she would send it out to everybody.
Okay.
And then if we had comments, we just send it back to Vivian. And if she got comments from Pat before me, she'd send me Pat's edited file with the changes on, and I'd just edit over that. With one of the people we had filling in to try to help catch us up on the minutes, we set up, so like I was giving comments to Pat, it was a serial thing.
Mhm.
So Pat was the last person to put comments into the document and then work with the recording secretary on that. So it's just a question of if you set it up, in my mind, if you set it up so that you say, okay, well, Ken provides comments and sends it to George, and George sends it to me, and I send it to Pat, and Pat sends it to you, that's a serial timeline. Whereas it occurred to me as you were talking, would it be better to have it in a shared area somehow and just say, okay, well, here's the deadline. You provide comments by March 10th, and then whatever's in there is in there for you unless somebody says they need more time, and provide it. Because otherwise we're chasing the chain down. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know how the board feels about it. I think Pat and I are the ones that tend to comment the most.
Yeah, I mean, when, many years ago, it used to be that was responsibility of the clerk. They would take the first pass at it, so they would hopefully get most of the edits, so that there wouldn't be as many. Because, I know Virginia and I both do quite a few edits. But, like I said, that was intended to be the responsibility of the clerk.
Right, but I certainly would think that the edits from the existing board would probably be more valuable at this point than the person that just walked in the door. Do you know what I mean? So I wouldn't want to, kind of dilute what you guys have for input. So the real question is going to be whether or not you can put it in a Google Docs location
Does that-
and be able to, kind of check it in, check it out type of thing, where, because if two people are hitting it at
Is
the
that in?
What's that?
Would that be compliant with like open meeting law and stuff if we all had access to the same document? I don't know why that's any different than sending
I
a
don't
document
know.
around in a chain.
Because you're really not doing policy.
We're not deliberating,
Yeah, you're not
we're
deliberating
just
or anything. You're
commenting on
editing.
minutes.
Yeah, you
It's not,
just,
I think it would be different if you were trying to do that to develop a policy, but where it's meeting minutes, I think that's more of a ministerial function, I would think. I mean, it's, so.
I mean, I do think there should be one person designated to do the first pass, rather than have different people doing that first pass. And I understand that, you're new, but these recording secretaries are new too. I mean, they don't even sit here. I mean, minutes are minutes,
Mhm.
Yeah, I mean, for the meetings he's missed, one of us would
Right,
have to do the
exactly,
first
right.
pass. But
Exactly, right, yeah. I mean, and we're almost caught up now. I think we only have, Christina, maybe two meetings?
I don't know.
Yes, Trish is working on the 2 March meetings. and than we're at tonight's meeting. So there's only two forthcoming that our new member would not have been participating in those meetings.
So, and if you want to think about it, that's fine, Mark, but do you, sitting here tonight, do you have a preference as to whether you would want it to be a chain or see if there's a way to put a shared document up there?
Well, I
that-
mean, we can take a look at that if I can work a little bit with the new person to see if there is a way we can do that where there won't be any other confusion or missing, somehow we'll miss some edits and so forth.
I think the new person would just be sending the first draft, and then the editing would be
on our
us,
server?
and then you would decide that
Okay.
it's done and send it back with the changes.
Okay.
I think it's more what he wants, that Mark wants than anybody else.
Well, I know initially it'll be, the easiest would be just to get it and send it around. I mean, that's the easiest. Everybody knows how to do that. As far as the shared drive, I'd have to talk to whomever.
Well, Paul, can Ted Lutter help us
Yeah, we can work
understand
with
what our
Christina, and
options
I
are
can
or
work with
something?
Ted to get something on a Google Drive,
Yeah,
And
to
then-
see how that would work.
like a
I
Teams
think it's
kind
more
of a thing.
rare than,
Yeah.
I think we don't have that many. Do we have that many?
It depends.
Edits?
Yeah, I don't
Sometimes
think
we
we
do.
really,
I
Sometimes.
think you'd be surprised.
Sometimes, yeah.
And, sometimes it's a lot of times it's, names, spelling of names and
Yeah,
and
it's
streets
a lot
and
of
things.
Well,
Just-
and sometimes
But
it's
that's important.
content, because when you're not here, you
That too.
don't, like, sometimes they just have trouble hearing, or, what the major point was, so. Okay,
Okay,
So-
I think to start, we should just do it serially while we look at whatever Ted might be able to put up for us to make sure that would work.
okay. And so will you help Christina manage that serial process?
Sure, it can just come to me,
Okay,
and then I'll start moving it around. If there's some order, people would prefer it for how it would go. Okay, then I'll just pick.
yeah.
okay.
Okay.
And then the other conversation that Christina and I had was the use of pronouns, and I forget what you call them, holographs, the Mr. Ms. So we had talked at one point about when a person is first identified, so like Paul, for example, perhaps call him Town Manager Cohen, and then after Mr. Cohen, whatever, is how they've typically been doing it. We have had people come to public session in the past or public input in the past who do not identify with a binary gender identity. And so we wanted to kind of be conscious of that, like when we have residents speaking, do we just default to gender neutral pronouns, the they and their, and the MX, or, I mean, if we know, then that's fine, but
Well, short
just
of
wanted to-
asking everybody when they actually speak and asking them what their pronouns are, I mean, otherwise you'd
Right.
have to do the they and their. I don't know how else you would do it.
I mean, I don't know if we're there yet. I mean, I'm still comfortable with the
agree.
him,
I
her,
agree
he,
with-
she.
I mean, many of the people who come, we know.
Right, yeah.
So
Right. I mean, if we're really not certain, then obviously.
we can always
yeah.
reach out and ask.
Yeah, or then default to the they, there. That's fine too.
Okay. Christina, is there anything else we needed to help you with tonight?
No, that was all. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. So we have some minutes to approve?
So I'll make a motion to approve the January 25th, 2021 meeting minutes.
I'll second, because you'll have to abstain.
I have
at
to
the beginning,
abstain,
right?
yeah.
I'll second.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
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 And just to note, those are the last ones that Vivian did, so yeah, we do want to thank Vivian. She's done many
Yep,
years' worth
absolutely.
of
Yeah.
Yeah.
good
Thank you,
minutes.
Vivian.
She put up with a lot. She was-
So that's a,
Comic relief was also well
yep. So-
appreciated.
So that vote is 4 in favor, 1 abstention.
Mhm.
I'll make a motion to approve the February 22nd, 2021 meeting minutes.
Second.
And I have one minor editing issue that I didn't catch on the set that I had sent on this one. On the bottom of page 4, the last paragraph, Board Member Wojcik asked if this should be done at the federal level as opposed to the state. Should be level. It says lever.
Okay.
So if we could just correct that.
Any other comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
So that's 4 and 1 abstention. That brings us to liaison reports. So I'll just go around. Mark, you wouldn't have any yet tonight, or?
No.
Okay.
I don't think I
Pat?
have an assignment, right?
Sometimes people come to you and we bring it up in liaison reports, even if it's not a formal assignment. That's why I asked.
Yeah, I just have a couple quick things. First, on April 23rd, the library is going to be hosting their annual poetry slam, one of my favorite events that they hold at the library. And usually the, new members are required to participate and write their own poem.
Yeah, you have to
Nice
write
try,
a.
Pat. I'll send my wife
Prose.
over.
Hmm?
Prose.
She's a writer. I'm not.
Oh, yeah, mostly prose, yeah. So anyway, April 23rd, 7 p.m., get your poems ready. The other thing is the parade committee is reaching out for folks who want to honor friends, family, others who are veterans. They're going to do the same thing they did last year with the veterans banners. You can find more information at chelmsfordparade.org. These banners will be going up around Memorial Day and stay up until Veterans Day, so it's a good way to honor.
On those pictures, did you have to provide the picture?
You have to
or
provide-
did the veterans people have something from?
You have to provide it, there may be some ways that you can find them, but I haven't been able to find any way that you can, but,
Right,
there might be,
thanks.
and that's all I have.
Okay. George, do you have any?
I'm all set, thank you.
Ken?
Well, just on the same thing of the new guy, the Minutemen are still planning on doing a walk from Carlisle to Concord on, no?
You're not supposed to say that.
Oh.
I thought it was just the Minutemen.
What?
Oh, but he can still walk with them.
Yeah. Anybody can walk with them.
Well, it's not a
more
public event,
hazing,
it's
or?
just the
Next Monday.
I don't think we have time for
I'd
that.
take it
You don't
that
mind
way.
walking to Concord?
Yeah, I've done it before, but that was in the bicentennial.
Sign him up. All right.
Anyway.
I'm just teasing the new guy. So I'm all set, though.
It's more hazing.
Okay.
Is there a policy about that?
I just have actually I have a few. From the assessors, you have your you should have your Q4 final tax bills, and they just want to point out that it should look like the third quarter bills, because those are actual versus the estimated that you had in Q1 and Q2. The filing deadline for property tax exemptions has actually passed, so any other questions you can ask the assessors. From the Board of Health, they just wanted to say again, and I think Paul has touched on this, that the town is back in the red for COVID-19 cases, and just want to remind people that it's still important to continue to wear masks, to social distance, and continue with hand washing. The school committee, the elementary schools successfully have transitioned to a full day in-person learning this week, and the middle schools and high schools are scheduled to do the same after the April vacation break. The Finance Committee did their deliberations and voting for the town meeting warrant articles on April 8th. So town meeting reps or anyone else, if you're interested in viewing those are online now with Chelmsford Telemedia. And this Wednesday, the Planning Board agenda includes a request for the reconsideration of the Oddfellows Fisk campus project, and the applicant is looking at redevelopment only of the Oddfellows building and some renovations to build in a restaurant. So they will be discussing that this Wednesday. And the Age-Friendly Community Committee just wants the public to know that with the approval of the Chelmsford Age-Friendly Action Plan by AARP, they have formed an implementation committee and are starting to implement the goals and actions. Their first committee meeting is planned for Wednesday, April 28th at 9 a.m., if anyone from the public would like to join that. That's all I have.
So Virginia, before we adjourn, I have a question about our meeting next week. My understanding was we were going to start having some proposals.
Town meeting presentations, yes,
presentations for-
yes.
Now, are we going to vote on those articles right after we hear the presentations, which would be my preference?
We can talk about it, I guess, with the board. I was thinking we would get through all of them and then do our deliberations and voting like we usually do.
We don't usually do that.
We don't?
I don't think so. I don't
That's how
think we
we've
do.
done it since I've been here, I think. We haven't voted the same night as presentations.
I think so.
I thought we had. I mean, I just think that's an inefficient
I think
way.
we've done it both ways.
I think that's.
Because that gives you time and space to go, if you have questions so they presented, if there's something you want to go back and look at after the presentations, it gives you a little time to do that, rather
I
than
thought they
voting on the
presented and
spot
vote
that
was a different
night.
night. I thought they presented and then we voted a
Right,
different night.
we usually designate a night for voting. That's what we've done the last 2 years anyway.
Well, I guess, but not like the way the Finance Committee does it. I mean, the way they do it, I think really isn't efficient, because they do their discussions and then they go back, and when they take the vote, the meetings that I've watched anyway, they basically debate again. Or do their discussions again. And I don't know, I would think as a courtesy to the presenters, if we have more questions, that's one thing. But, if we're done with the discussion and, are ready to vote.
What does the board want to do?
I think we've done it both ways. You've been around a long time, a lot longer than,
I've been around, yeah.
So Pat, are you,
No, you've been here, it's what, your 12th year, 13th year, or whatever?
Patty-
I remember in the early days that we did it the other way, and then I think we've done it each way, so.
I know I've used that time to actually go back and look at things before we vote, but
so you're saying that the Finance Committee votes the same night they,
no, they don't.
No, they don't.
okay.
They hear all the presentations and then they designate a night to vote and deliberate. And during the presentations, that's not deliberation. You get the presentations and it's a time to ask clarifying
Okay,
questions.
no, that's what I thought. I
And
thought
you
you were saying
you
that
don't
they,
opine on it during the presentations.
Got it.
You ask clarifying questions.
that's the way I understood it,
And you
but
get,
when
you
Pat
get
had
through
said
the,
that, I
you
thought she
get
was
through the
saying.
totality of the warrant articles and then go and step through and vote, which would be my personal preference. But
I thought Pat was saying they listen to an article, then they vote, and it
No,
was
no,
more
no, they
efficient.
that's what
I-
she's suggesting we do.
Right, I
Right,
like,
but to have the debate then, too, I mean, because, like I said, to me, it's almost a courtesy to the people making the presentation, so they can address those issues, if there anything that might come up during our deliberations, and maybe be prepared for what might come up at actual town meeting.
so it's sort of a practice run for them.
And you could call it that in some regards. I mean, and maybe not all of them we would be ready to vote on. I'll give you that too, because, like a lot of times, maybe especially with some zoning articles, there may be questions that we want to go back and do some more research on. But I just think if we can, we should. I mean, we don't have to take them all, but
I don't know how you keep track. I think we should just do it the way we were doing it. Vote on some, but not on others. That
it's not that hard to keep track of. I don't know, I don't know. But if that's the way you want to do it, but I just think if they're all going to be done on one night, I thought part of the issue, part of the intention was to get it done as, not as quickly as possible, but to be efficient about it.
Do you have any thoughts, Mark?
No. Having not gone through the process, I really don't. I think I know what she's saying, though, because if it's fairly straightforward and there aren't a lot of clarifying statements and so forth, then, you know, but.
I haven't seen what we're able to schedule for April 20th. Are they clustered? So, like, for example, are all the financials together?
No,
Or the-
what I did is I reached out to those who are external from the town employees. So, for example, we reached out to Dave Foley, reached out to Bernd Kosicki, reached out to Dave McLaughlin. Basically we're trying to give them as much time and flexibility because, and I only received one back so far, but I know I can pull John in, to come in and talk about capital plan at any time. And whereas some of these other folks may not be around next week, school vacation week or what have you. So I wanted to give them as much advance notice. And I imagine some we're not going to invite. I mean, I don't imagine we're going to invite Neshoba Tech to come in and present. I mean, they've
No.
had their budget breakfast, they've, and so forth. So they're, and then Evan will come in perhaps with other planning board members and do zoning, so those would be clustered, yeah. Something like that. I mean, we're not going to do one zoning article one night and another, but I'm not doing them in order. I'm doing it sort of like I said, as a courtesy to those who may have more, than we don't pay them to come. So I'm trying to do that as a courtesy to them to say,
Okay.
what time works for you and when's convenient. And again, I'll have that in the draft agenda will be out on Wednesday, so.
So
I'm open to trying.
we can
something
try
new.
it
I
and
mean,
see how it
yeah,
goes.
I can understand where, on the night where we're inviting residents in or people from outside in, I see Pat's side of it where it's a chance to give them a sort of a test run through, but then also we can have some question and answer with them. But if we need more time to think about it, we can vote later. But like consent agenda and then the stuff that's easy, you could
Yeah.
work through those and we
Yeah.
could vote on those
Yeah.
that night.
It'd probably be a
Right,
hybrid.
exactly, yeah.
some
Keep Pat
Right, so we-
flexible.
Play it by ear and have flexibility to defer if we need to.
Yeah, I mean, there have been times when we, I don't think it's happened recently, where we've had questions such that we've waited to make our recommendations till right before town meeting.
Yeah, that night, whatever.
Yeah, right,
Yeah.
A meeting before the meeting.
exactly. So, it's,
We can try it and then see if it's an improvement and look at it after the fact.
Okay.
okay, thanks.
Yep. And I don't see any press.
If they can't even make a good motion.
Our next meeting is April 20th, Tuesday of next week.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Unanimous.